Tom, I'm with you. I've joined the Kevin Sperry fan club. I like that kid. There's a little something to him, huh?
There is.
He's got a little what for to him.
And that matches what the highlight film says he can do on the field. There's a little extra, which you need in this system. If it's going to be around for a few years, you need that little extra because they're going to ask you to run a lot.
Well, and this brings me to my point. The last couple of times that I've spoken about Florida State football, it hasn't been sort of a, engineered way to infuse that into the show for the fact that, the large percentage of this audience wants some football content year round. There are days where it's just not there. I can usually think of an angle. There are things that are constantly kicking around my brain, and luckily I have an outlet for it. My wife would be like, "Are you kidding me? You're going to talk about this now in March when we're miles away from Florida State football starting?" But luckily we have the Jeff Cameron show, so I can do that. But every now and then, and a lot lately, there's been something of substance where you could, I'm genuinely excited. I wouldn't have brought it up otherwise. Genuinely excited about the defense that Tony White's going to put together. And I talk about it a lot, that basically, hey, get me to that spring practice and let's see how quickly we get this thing going. How quickly we start hitting out here and get after it. Just a different mindset. But listening to his interview on Tuesday, I thought, that's interesting. That doesn't sound much like a quarterback. He's talking about running people over and how much he enjoys running people over, and that he feels like that brings a lot of energy to the team. Well, given the offense that we're switching to, I'm going to need my quarterback to not avoid contact. I'm going to need my quarterback. A lot of times, when we were talking about Jordan Travis, unfortunately, one of his weaknesses is that he was injury prone. He had, he didn't have the body for it. He's tough. I never questioned his toughness. He's a tough kid, but he got hurt a lot, especially early in his career. And again, he wasn't necessarily built for that kind of thing. He could run like the wind blows, and he could make you miss. He was a freak of an athlete, but you didn't want him in the crosshairs of a 238-pound linebacker squaring him up. Certainly not a defensive end, etc. But you now are going to run an offense where it certainly would behoove you to have a guy who, A, has the mentality of bring it on. I'll run you over, and I actually can't wait. And, his father was a linebacker at Washington State. He played running back until 8th grade, so he comes by it naturally. He likes to run the football, and I agree. I think we're going to run the hell out of him when his time comes. It'll be a few years from now, but when it happens, I think we'll run the hell out of him.
It just is a prerequisite. As long as this is your offensive coordinator, you need to expect that the quarterback is going to be called upon to run a lot. And even if the quarterback is not a runner first, he's still going to be called upon because it makes the world go round for that offense. You have to. This is the thing that we got so pissed off about the last couple of seasons. Even when Jordan was healthy in 23.
Wouldn't run.
They have to honor it. They have to honor it. And when they do, even if they do, Jordan, you're singular. You're going to make that guy miss anyway. So it would be a good idea to have the safety you have to think about it rather than just the read defender we're looking at on the end of the line. Because if they have to consider that, then Trey's going to hit more home runs than whatever backside post you're looking at or whatever route combination you're looking at on the weak side of the field is going to be open because they have to account for the fact that they're scared blankless of your legs. Well, Gus demands that it happens. It's going to happen. And you could look like Jarrett Stidham, or you could look like Nick Marshall, or you could look like Cam Newton. Doesn't matter. You're going to run the football.
You have to have the threat of that in your offense for this whole thing to work. Now, the young man we're referencing there from Denton, Texas, ran for 1,156 yards and 8 touchdowns in his final season. Now he threw for 2,523 yards and 27 touchdowns, but I just went straight to the rushing yardage because, damn, you rush for over 1,100 yards.
Well,
all right then.
Yes, and he said his top speed is up to 21 miles per hour. Now, that doesn't tell you how fast they are. It just tells you what their top end is, and that could take somebody 6 steps, 10 steps, 3 steps. But still, there's a willingness to run. There is some top-end speed there. And, again, from his huddle stuff, his highlight films, you see a comfort level with throwing on the run, on the move. standing up, climbing the pocket. I love the variety of the ways that he delivers the football, because this offense is not going to have you sit back there and be triangulated, and then it's a race. Can we hold up versus how long it takes for this route to come open? No, you're going to be on the move an awful lot. And he seems to embrace that with the way that he played in high school.
Loves the tour of duty. Said, I think it's the only thing that we're doing right now that's real, like game environment. There's just a lot of chaos, a lot of yelling, a lot of details that you need to memorize. Obviously, it's tough, but I love it. Cool. Good. Fostering a different breed of player, a different kind of guy on both sides of the ball will go a long way to making us feel better about perhaps how Florida State's going to take the field and the mentality that they bring with them. Now, again, I feel like we're always throwing in the caveat that after 2-10, we'll wait and see what it looks like. It's great to say all the things, but we need to see how well it's implemented and how quickly we can raise to that level. I was cracking up. I saw, we try. I don't do it nearly as well as everybody else, and I should probably do more of it, I suppose. It's not necessarily always asked of me because I have the 3 hours out here every day. But, when you work for and work with Warchant, or really any of the sites that cover the team, the people who work for these things are asked to engage and talk with the subscribers, just like I do with listeners and anything else. And so I'll occasionally go through on the boards and just kind of look to see if I can get a sense of where people's heads are at collectively. You just look at the posts and kind of look at, what's engaging them, what's making people talk right now. And, obviously the central theme is Florida State. But somebody was lamenting that there was exactly zero buzz for this Florida State football team heading into 2025. And I kind of chuckled at that. I thought, well, that's what happens when you're 2-10. There is no buzz. There is no buzz, but it doesn't mean that internally, you, me, and other diehard Noles, understanding full well that the outside press isn't going to have anything to say about a team that was as bad as we were a year ago. Doesn't mean we can't be excited about some of the things that we're seeing in terms of the changes and what's going to be implemented. And we don't know if it's going to work. We can't predict that it's going to work. We don't know if it's going to radically alter Florida State's fortune and the next 2 years they're going to be a playoff team and find their way out of this godforsaken, sorry-ass conference. We don't know the big picture stuff there. But day to day, you can still get excited about things you hear, like what this young man had to say about the way he likes to play quarterback. And you can get excited about what I get excited about, which is what Tony White is trying to implement defensively. And just hope like hell that those changes and that mentality shift is going to be something that translates into wins.
Yeah, this is another place that I get excited that I wouldn't have if you're just looking at these things in a vacuum. And the two things are Gus Malzahn coming in to be the offensive coordinator. That doesn't excite me in a vacuum. Castellanos being your quarterback and coming in as a transfer doesn't excite me in a vacuum.
Correct.
However, to be fair, if you're going to bring both in, it's greater than the sum of their individual parts. Because this is a guy who's run for 1,000 yards in the ACC a couple of years ago. And that the way Gus calls it, that if he can run for 1,000 again, they're going to demand that Thomas runs for 1,000 yards.
They'll get the most out of that mobility, yeah.